1 p.m. Central Africa time. The Queen of Morna music, legendary late and great Cesaria Vora, with that one titled Caesar. Before that, we had Deborah Debs coming in with Dream. If you've just joined us, welcome to African Diaries. Sheila Ndikumana keeping you company. You are tuned into Channel Africa, the station that prides itself in bringing that African perspective. Do find us on our mobile app, Channel Africa, or our website, channelafrica.co.za. Now, gender-based violence is often spoken about as a social crisis, but it's also deeply connected to crime networks, cyber exploitation, and human trafficking. Across Africa, criminals are becoming more sophisticated, more connected, more technologically advanced, if you ask me. The question is our justice system keeping up? Now, joining us this evening is Kim Robertson, the Executive Director of the Pan-African Justice Initiative, an organization working across Africa to build the capacity of prosecutors, investigators, analysts, and legal professionals to tackle complex crimes like gender-based violence, cybercrime, human trafficking, and of course, corruption. Now, Kim joins us this evening to talk about why the launch matters, and this launch is specific to the Pan-African webinar that's taking place on the 12th of March. Outside that, we're also going to be looking at how GBV intersects with other forms of organized crime and what it will take for us to build a safer South Africa and, of course, a safer Africa. Kim, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to African Diaries.
Sheila, good evening, and good evening to your listeners.
Let's start off just by giving definition for those who are not familiar with PAJI. Just explain to us, what is the Pan-African Justice Initiative?
The Pan-African Justice Initiative is a recently formed nonprofit organization. We're registered in South Africa, in the US, and in Kenya. And our focus is on building the skills of and relationships between criminal justice practitioners so they have the ability to fight transnational and cross-border crime more effectively. And the event on March 12th is a webinar that is our official launch and introduction to the public and the criminal justice sector.
And Kim, what are some of the gaps that this particular initiative aims to focus on?
Criminal justice systems all over the continent, South Africa included, are marked by resource constraints, a lack of knowledge about how to fight the most sophisticated crimes, an approach that is often very siloed. So the investigators don't talk to the detectives, don't talk to the police, don't talk to the prosecutors, but it's a team effort. So our approach in terms of capacity building is to break those silos. And another gap that is present is that criminal justice personnel in one country are not familiar with their counterparts in countries right next door to them or countries further up the continent. And when you're dealing with crime that crosses borders, you have to have relationships that cross borders. So we have the convening power to have the various prosecuting authorities from across the continent come together and get to know each other so that when that time comes when there's a crime to fight, they already have the relationships they need to be effective.
The voice there of Kim Robertson, who is the Executive Director of the Pan-African Justice Initiative. If you have questions, do find us on WhatsApp. The conversation this evening, of course, is a focal point on the 12th of March, this Thursday, and the launch of the Pan-African webinar. But also outside that, the reality that GBV is interconnected into various forms of crimes, organized crimes that have proven to be much more sophisticated than what meets the eye. Let's take a quick breather. When we get back, we continue this conversation.
Channel Africa is evolving, and so are you. Stay connected wherever you are with our brand new website and mobile app. Stream your favorite shows, catch up on African news, culture, and conversations, all at your fingertips.
Africa is just a tap away.
Your world, your stories, now on the go.
Stay connected wherever you are.
visit channelafrica.co.za or download the Channel Africa app today. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Turn the page. It's African Diaries on Channel Africa.
19 minutes before 11 p.m. Central Africa time. We're still in conversation with Kim Robertson, who is the Executive Director for the Pan-African Justice Initiative. And tonight we turn to conversations towards solutions, collaboration, and of course, strengthening justice systems across borders. Now, Thursday marks the official launch of the webinar of PAJI, also known as the Pan-African Justice Initiative. Why was the right moment formally introduced, firstly in the month of March, but also on the 12th?
I mean, honestly, it was just good timing. I mean, I think, the time is always now to make a difference. And, issues around gender-based violence and the weaknesses in criminal justice systems across the continent are not new. But my colleagues and I were able to formulate this organization, and we just decided let's get going with convening. Let's go forward with creating a track record for ourselves, and let's get going with introducing what we have to offer, which is a course catalog, literally of hundreds of potential courses. We have a series of sort of general courses on financial crimes, gender-based violence, anti-human trafficking, but we also allow stakeholders to engage with us so that we can customize courses. Our courses are practitioners, so it's not theoretical, but it's people who are actually prosecuting these crimes in South Africa and other African countries that give the workshops their local and regional grounding and perspective in the local reality.
Kim, let's perhaps give view to how interconnected these crimes are. And I want us to focalize GBV, because it's all, I think we can get to a state where we just address crime with a blanket approach, right? Where we're not necessarily looking at the intricacies and how dangerous these crimes pose to society. And so if you could help us understand, how does GBV connect to cyber crimes? How does GBV connect to networks and syndicates across the continent and, of course, beyond?
Right. So, for example, if someone is a victim of gender-based violence, that already might make them even more vulnerable to being trafficked, that is coerced into forced labor or potentially commercial sex. And the technological or the cybercrime link is that, perhaps they were recruited and groomed through the internet. So where tech is being used and misused and abused to commit crime. So the person, first of all, is vulnerable because they've been a victim of gender-based violence. They're vulnerable to human trafficking. They do get trafficked. And then maybe perhaps after they survive this ordeal, they find themselves victim to cyber harassment. And I mean, in terms of the tech and how it's used, I mean, it could be everything from money laundering and cryptocurrency to people being coerced because their identities have been stolen. And then they've been coerced that way. So it's really so right. These various things they can seem separate, but criminals are using them together to commit the different crimes.
Kim, you will correct me if I'm wrong. I tend to think that when we see the justice system take into account what is happening in society, we often prosecute individuals. However, these are networks and syndicates, and they're clusters of people involved. Are we going to be looking at that reality as well?
I think we must. And I think you hit a very important point. That is, if you get people at the lower level of the system, that is something, and that's progress, and that's important, and that's necessary, but it's not sufficient. So the question becomes, the criminals are organized. The real question is criminal justice organized? And criminals will, typically be at least a step ahead of us because they don't have to follow rules, right? Yeah. They don't have budget constraints. Criminal justice systems have both those things. Yeah. In addition to that, do criminal justice institutions have the will to do what it takes to, as you said, get the folks who are higher up in the criminal hierarchy and, bring them to bear. And again, that's about, do we have the skills? Do we have the financial resources? And do we have the relationships? And even the relationships within a country. Again, it's a team effort to make sure that justice takes place. But, when is it that the police and the investigators and the financial analysts and the prosecutors are talking? Does our judiciary actually understand these crimes and how sophisticated they are? So it's a matter of building the relationships and the understanding within country and between countries.
Kim, we talk about interconnectivity, but we all know that there are great divides amidst the African continent and the countries thereof. And these become a factor of bilateral ties. If not that, then just feuds between countries. How are we going to strengthen the justice system if we can't even agree on how things should be governed?
Well, look, I don't think we have to have agreement on, governance per se. I think the question really becomes, is there a like-minded approach to addressing crime? And if that's for example, in organizing this launch event for PAGI, I had a senior prosecutor in South Africa say to me, wow, Kim, you can bring us into the same room as our counterparts in West Africa? I said, certainly. So there is that desire, because when something is happening in the two countries and the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing, it's difficult to move forward. There are bureaucratic processes that go through departments of international relations, through mutual legal assistance agreements, but those are, clunky, bureaucratic, and slow. You have to have that, but that's, again, not sufficient. If there's relationships that people know each other, oh yeah, remember that person I was in that course with, that workshop in? Oh, let me give them a call and see what they can do to help grease the wheels so that we can get the wheels of justice turning in the right direction. So certainly, I'm not going to romanticize that there's not, disagreements and discord. But the real point is, despite that, is there the will and the consistency about we want to fight crime?
Kim, just a follow-up to that, and I'm looking at this specifically in the context of GBV. There are countries that still permit child marriages, and that's the thing that gets me thinking, is that the legislature doesn't serve the continent as a whole. And so what would be considered crime in South Africa is perhaps permissible in Senegal or Kenya. And so what's the framework for that? Or how do we get onto the same boat so that we're moving in one accord?
I'm not going to overstate the mandate of PAGI. It's not to get, all 50 plus countries on the continent to have perfectly consistent law. And again, that actually really isn't necessary, because there's probably, is there, I'm chuckling. Is there a country on the continent that thinks that human trafficking is okay? I doubt it. So I think what's important is to work with the countries that there are common values and commonalities, and go from there. On this workshop, for example, we've got Kenya, South Africa, and the U.S. represented. So you've got the South African local perspective, Kenya, a sort of regional African perspective, and the U.S., a global perspective. And the idea is for people to engage each other as professionals and talk about, well, how do we build these bridges so that we are more effective at what we do day to day, which is trying to put people in orange jumpsuits.
Absolutely. The voice there of Kim Robertson joining us this evening, Executive Director of the Pan-African Justice Initiative. We take a quick breather. When we get back, we're going to be talking about the 12th of March, getting into the thicket of the webinar and finding out how we can partake as citizens.
Africa Matters, the conversation on climate change and financing Africa's recovery. Only on Channel Africa.
We're proud to announce that Wits Business School is actually our partner. They are hosting us. The second most important thing, though, for me, is that we often go to these summits, these conferences, and you find that you never really know where to find solutions and outcomes that came out of those discussions. So Wits Business School will craft our outcomes document, which will have steps to say what are the follow-ups and how do we measure success and what do we need to do next.
Across the continent, climate change is forcing tough decisions. This is Africa Matters. Africa Speaks on African Diaries with Sheila Ndikumana.
It is 9 minutes before 11 p.m. Central Africa time. We're still in conversation with the Executive Director of Pan-African Justice Initiative, or rather the Pan-African Justice Initiative. That is Kim Robertson joining us this evening. Now, the organization is officially launching a Pan-African webinar this Thursday, the 12th of March, bringing together criminal justice practitioners from across the continent to strengthen cooperation and develop practical skills to fight cross-border crime. Kim, I heard you say that there are courses available. Will this be part of the presentations in the webinar?
So the purpose of the webinar is to give people an opportunity to get to know Pan-African Justice Initiative and to get an introduction to our course catalog. So we will talk about some of the courses that we provide, which cover gender-based violence, cybercrime, and human trafficking, but also make it clear that because of the deep database of practicing prosecutors that we have, we can customize courses for any particular stakeholder that would want training in, let's say, anti-money laundering, or even maybe how to strengthen management of their prosecutorial office, or emotional intelligence, or getting into anti-wildlife training. So we customize based on the need of that particular criminal justice institution. So on Thursday, when we launch, we will be talking about the course catalog, but it'll also be an opportunity for people to see the convening power of PAJI, that we can bring together people from Kenya, from South Africa, from the US, to have a constructive conversation with the public. And people can sign up for the webinar by going to our website, www.thepaji.org, or looking on social media. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram, and you can find us there, and you will find invitation and a link to register, and then you'd be able to get the Zoom link to participate in the webinar. And we really want the public, whether you're in criminal justice, your youth, your public policy, you're just an interested citizen, to get online with us and have a conversation. It's going to be moderated by Nosipo Shabalala, who is an excellent facilitator. And it'll be an opportunity for people to have their voices heard. What are the things that they care about? How do they think they can contribute? What are the questions keeping them up at night? They'll have an opportunity to engage with these professionals through that webinar. And this is just a start. This is sort of an introduction to other types of events that we will have to engage criminal justice practitioners as well as the public.
Kim, we cannot wait to see the work unfold. We cannot wait to see the participation of the African society, but also what PAJI has to offer to the African continent. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
It's been my pleasure. Thanks to you. Thanks to the listeners.
The voice there of the Executive Director of the Pan-African Justice Initiative, Kim Robinson. You heard that webinar is available to all folks in the African continent. Please do head over to their social media platforms. You are looking for the Pan-African Justice Initiative. This webinar is taking place on the 12th of March, and that is this Thursday. For now, let's get some music.